The Galactic Council's mistake, the massive crystal spires of the Galactic Council chamber stretched toward the artificial sky of Station Prime, their surfaces pulsing with the bioluminescent patterns of a dozen different species. Ambassadors of the Drakmori Empire stood at the center of the circular council floor, his four arms gesturing dramatically as he addressed the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Honored council members, Zektar's voice resonated through the chamber's translation matrix. We gather today to discuss a most pressing matter. The human colonies in the Outer Rim have been expanding at an alarming rate, yet they contribute nothing to the Galactic Peace Initiative. High Chancellor Velthar, a towering crystalline being whose thoughts manifested as swirling colors within his translucent form, pulsed a deep orange of concern. The humans have been remarkably quiet since their first contact with our civilization. 3 years ago, perhaps too quiet. Exactly my point, Zektar continued, his reptilian features twisted into what humans might recognize as a sneer. They claim to be peaceful explorers, yet they refuse to pay the standard tribute required of all developing species. They show no respect for the established order. Councillor Thixer, whose insectoid appearance belied her species' reputation, for careful calculation, clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. The humans possess only primitive technology. Their ships are crude, their weapons basic. They pose no threat to the established powers. This assessment had been reached after careful observation of humanity's first diplomatic vessel, a simple exploration ship that had stumbled upon a council patrol 3 years earlier. The human crew had been polite, even eager to establish peaceful relations, but their technology appeared centuries behind the galactic standard. Their weakness is precisely why we must act now, Zektar pressed. If we allow one species to ignore the tribute system, others will follow. The humans must be made to understand their place in the galactic hierarchy. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. The Galactic Council had maintained peace and order for over 1,000 years through a simple system. Powerful species ruled, weaker ones paid tribute, and everyone knew their place. The humans, with their small colonies and primitive technology, were clearly among the weaker species. Very well, High Chancellor Velthar announced, his form shifting to a decisive purple. We shall send a fleet to the human colony of New Terra. They will be given one standard cycle to agree to tribute terms or face the consequences of defying the Council. 3 days later, in the command center of New Terra Colony, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display showing the approaching Council fleet. At 52 years old, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen more than her fair share of impossible situations. Her graying black hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her uniform bore the scars of countless missions. How many ships? She asked Captain Elena Rodriguez, her tactical officer. 57 vessels, Elena replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Heavy cruisers, battleships, and what looks like a command dreadnought. They're not trying to hide their intentions. Any communication from them, standard diplomatic channels. They're demanding to speak with our leadership about tribute obligations. Sarah nodded slowly. She had expected this day would come eventually. The Galactic Council's reputation for enforcing their will on smaller species was well known throughout human space. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since first contact. Send a message to Earth Command, Sarah ordered. Tell them the Council has made their move. Already done, Admiral. General Webb sends his regards and says the plan is in motion. General Marcus Webb, Sarah's old friend, and now Earth's Minister of Defense, had spent 3 years preparing for this scenario. While the Council believed humanity possessed only primitive technology, the truth was far more complex. Humans had simply chosen to show only what they wanted the galaxy to see. The Council fleet took up position in orbit around New Terra, their massive ships casting shadows across the colony's surface. The largest vessel, Ambassador Zektar's flagship, was a kilometer-long monstrosity bristling with weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Incoming transmission, Alina announced. Zektar's image appeared on the main screen, his 4 arms spread wide in what his species considered a gesture of authority. Humans of New Terra, I am Ambassador Zektar of the Drakmori Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. Your species has been found in violation of established galactic law. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Sarah replied calmly. What violation are you referring to? Do not play ignorant, human. Your colonies have expanded beyond the borders granted to developing species, and you have failed to pay the required tribute to the Council. These are serious offenses. We were never informed of any tribute requirements, Sarah said. Our first contact with your civilization was peaceful, and no such demands were made. Zektar's eyes narrowed. Ignorance is no excuse. You will immediately provide the Council with 50,000 tons of processed metals, 10,000 units of energy cells, and 20% of your population for labor assignments. This tribute will be paid annually from this point forward. Sarah felt a cold anger building in her chest. You're demanding our people as slaves. Labor assignments are a standard part of the tribute system. Your people will be well treated and provided with meaningful work throughout the galaxy. And if we refuse, then you will face the consequences of defying the Council. Your colonies will be pacified, your technology confiscated, and your people relocated to appropriate work assignments anyway. The choice is yours, but the outcome is the same. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, her face betraying nothing of her thoughts. Finally, she spoke. Ambassador, I need to consult with my government. How long do we have to consider your offer? 1 standard cycle, Zektar replied. 24 of your planet's rotations. Use this time wisely, human. The Council's patience has limits. The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her staff. Alina was the first to speak. 24 hours to surrender half our population to slavery, she said bitterly. That's generous of them. They're not going to like our answer, Sarah replied. What is our answer? Sarah smiled for the first time since the Council fleet had arrived. We're going to show them what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. Over. The next 24 hours, seemingly nothing happened. The Council fleet maintained its position, occasionally sending patrols to demonstrate their overwhelming firepower. The human colony appeared to be going about its normal business, though long-range sensors detected increased communication traffic between New Terra and other human settlements. What the Council couldn't detect was the subspace network that had been built over the past 3 years, connecting every human colony to Earth and to each other. General Webb had insisted on quantum communications that were undetectable by current galactic technology. Status report, Sarah requested as the deadline approached. All colonies report ready, Alina said. The fleet is in position, and Earth Command confirms green light for Operation Quiet Storm. Remind me again why we called it that. Because we're about to make a lot of noise after being quiet for 3 years. Sarah keyed the communication system. This is Admiral Chen to all stations. Operation Quiet Storm is now active. Show them what humanity really looks like. Across human space, what the Council had dismissed as primitive colonies began to reveal their true nature. Mining stations that appeared to be simple resource extraction operations suddenly sprouted advanced sensor arrays and communication dishes. Cargo ships that seemed to be carrying basic supplies transformed as their hull plating retracted to reveal sleek warships armed with weapons the galaxy had never seen. Most shocking of all, the space around New Terra began to shimmer as advanced stealth fields deactivated. Where there had been empty space moments before, a massive human fleet materialized. Not the small, primitive vessels the Council expected, but hundreds of sleek, advanced warships that had been hidden in plain sight. Impossible, Zektar whispered on his flagship's bridge. Where did they come from? Sir, his tactical officer stammered. Our sensors are detecting massive energy signatures from the human ships. These readings are off the scale. Get me the human admiral, Zektar ordered, his confidence shaken for the first time in decades. Sarah's image appeared on his screen, but she was no longer on the colony surface. She stood on the bridge of a massive warship, surrounded by holographic displays showing tactical information that made Zektar's blood run cold. Admiral Chen, he said, trying to regain his composure. This is an impressive display, but you are still vastly outnumbered. Are we? Sarah asked quietly. Computer, show Ambassador Zektar the current tactical situation. The display updated to show not just the local engagement, but the entire sector. Council fleets throughout human space were suddenly facing the same situation. Hundreds of hidden human vessels had appeared from nowhere, surrounding and outnumbering the Council forces at every location. This is impossible, Zektar repeated. Our intelligence reports indicated you possessed only primitive technology. Your intelligence reports were based on exactly what we wanted you to see, Sarah replied. We've been preparing for this moment since first contact. Did you really think we would make ourselves vulnerable to the first powerful alien civilization? We encountered the truth was that humanity had learned its lesson well from Earth's own history. When European colonizers had encountered isolated civilizations, technological superiority had often meant domination and exploitation. Humanity had no intention of suffering the same fate. The ships you saw 3 years ago were built specifically to appear primitive, Sarah continued. We needed to understand the galactic political situation before revealing our true capabilities. What we discovered was a system built on the exploitation of weaker species by stronger ones. The tribute system maintains galactic peace, Zektar protested. The tribute system maintains galactic slavery, Sarah corrected, and humanity will have no part in it. General Webb had spent years developing the strategy they now called Quiet Storm. While appearing to be a young, primitive species, humanity had actually been building one of the most advanced fleets in the galaxy. Human scientists, freed from the need to develop basic technologies that the galaxy had already perfected, had leaped ahead in specific areas: stealth, technology, energy, weapons, and most importantly, artificial intelligence. Your deadline has expired, Ambassador, Sarah said. Now I have an offer for you. You are hardly in a position to make demands, Zektar said, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. I'm not making demands, Sarah replied. I'm offering you the chance to withdraw peacefully, leave human space, return to your council, and tell them that humanity is not interested in their tribute system. We're willing to trade, to cooperate, to work together for mutual benefit. But we will not be slaves. And if we refuse? Sarah's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made Zektar step back from his screen. Then you'll discover why we're called the Quiet Ones, Ambassador. It's not because we're weak. It's because we prefer to solve problems without violence. But when violence becomes necessary, we're very, very good at it. The Council fleet found itself surrounded by human vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. Their weapon systems were being jammed by technology they couldn't understand, and their sensors were showing energy readings that defied explanation. "This is your last chance," Sarah said. "Leave now and tell your council that humanity is not interested in their protection racket. Force us to defend ourselves, and you'll learn why it's a mistake to threaten someone's home." Zektar looked at his tactical displays, at the impossible human fleet that surrounded his ships, and made the only decision that made sense. "All ships, prepare for withdrawal. We're returning to Council space." As the Council fleet retreated, Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The Quiet Ones had spoken at last, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was their refusal to kneel. When diplomacy fails, humanity rises. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of Ambassador Zektar's return to Station Prime. The massive chamber buzzed with agitated conversation as representatives from dozens of species tried to process what had just occurred. For the first time in over 1,000 years, a tribute demand had been not just refused, but met with overwhelming force. High Chancellor Velthar's crystalline form pulsed with deep red patterns of anger and confusion. "Explain to me again, Ambassador." "Zektar, how a primitive species managed to produce a fleet that outnumbered and outgunned our forces." Zektar stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms gesturing helplessly. "Honored Chancellor, I can only report what I witnessed. The humans have been deceiving us since first contact. Their true fleet is ... formidable. Formidable." Councillor Thixtra's mandibles clicked in disbelief. "You describe hundreds of advanced warships appearing from nowhere. This is beyond formidable. This is impossible." "Yet it happened," Zektar replied. "Their stealth technology is unlike anything we've encountered." Their ships appeared to materialize from empty space itself. War Marshal Corvin of the Hegemony of Worlds slammed his massive fist on his delegation's table. The 7-foot-tall warrior had led council forces for 3 centuries, and his scarred face spoke of countless victories. "This is intolerable. No developing species should possess such capabilities. They must be stopped before they become a threat to galactic stability." "They are already a threat," Velthar replied, his form shifting to deep purple. "Reports are coming in from across the galaxy. Human colonies that we assumed were small and defenseless are revealing advanced defensive systems. Trade stations that appeared primitive are now showing energy signatures that rival our most advanced facilities." What the Council didn't know was that humanity's deception had been even more complete than they realized. For 3 years, human colonies had been built with 2 layers. A surface layer designed to look primitive and harmless, and a hidden layer containing humanity's true capabilities. It was a strategy born from Earth's own history of guerrilla warfare and asymmetric tactics. General Marcus Webb sat in the war room beneath Earth's capital, surrounded by holographic displays showing the current status of human forces throughout the galaxy. At 65, he was one of the few humans who remembered the dark period before first contact, when humanity had been preparing for the possibility of hostile alien contact. "Status report," he requested from his aide, Colonel Jennifer Park. All colonies report successful revelation of defensive capabilities, Colonel Park replied. The Council fleets have withdrawn from human space, but long-range sensors indicate they're massing for a coordinated response. Expected, Webb nodded. How many ships are they gathering? Current estimates suggest over 2,000 vessels. From multiple Council species, they're calling it a pacification fleet. Webb smiled grimly. They still don't understand what they're dealing with. Open a channel to Admiral Chen. Sarah's image appeared on the main screen. She was still aboard her flagship, the UES Determination, which had been disguised as a mining station for the past 2 years. General, I assume you've heard about the Council's response. 2,000 ships, Webb confirmed. They're planning to make an example of us. Are we ready for Phase 2? All systems are green. The question is whether we want to reveal everything at once or continue the gradual revelation approach. Sarah considered this. The original plan had been too slowly. Reveal humanity's capabilities over time, allowing the galaxy to adjust to the reality of human strength. But the Council's response suggested they weren't interested in adjustment. I think the time for subtlety has passed, Sarah decided. If they want to see what humanity can really do, let's show them. 3 days later, the largest military fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of human space. 2,300 ships from 12 different species, representing the combined might of the Galactic Council. At its head was War Marshal Corvin's personal dreadnought, the Eternal Dominion, a ship so massive it had its own gravitational field. Humans of the colony worlds, Corvin's voice boomed across all frequencies. You have defied the established order of the galaxy. You have refused to acknowledge your place in the galactic hierarchy. This ends now. The response came not from Admiral Chen, but from an unexpected source. A new voice, calm and measured, spoke across the communication channels. This is President Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Federation. You are addressing not just colonial settlements, but sovereign human territory. I suggest you reconsider your aggressive posture. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Corvin's tactical officer looked up from his displays with confusion. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout this system. The readings are ... unprecedented. Show me, Corvin ordered. The main display updated to reveal the true extent of humanity's presence. What the Council had thought was a handful of primitive colonies was actually a fully integrated network of advanced installations, space stations that dwarfed anything the Council had built, orbital shipyards that were currently launching vessels larger than anything in the galactic fleet, and at the center of it all, a structure that defied classification. What is that? Corvin whispered. Admiral Chen's voice answered from the massive structure. That, War Marshal, is New Geneva Station, humanity's primary military command center. And from here, I'm going to show you why threatening our people was a mistake. The station was massive beyond comprehension, a city in space that housed over 2 million people. But it wasn't just a military installation. It was a symbol of what humanity could achieve when their survival was at stake. Impossible, Corvin breathed. Our intelligence reports indicated you possessed only primitive technology. Your intelligence reports were based on carefully crafted misinformation, Admiral Chen replied. We've been building this infrastructure for 3 years, hidden in plain sight. Every primitive colony you've observed was actually a sophisticated military installation. Every cargo ship you've seen was actually a warship in disguise. The truth was even more remarkable than the Council realized. Humanity had not just been preparing for this moment, They had been revolutionizing warfare itself. Human scientists had developed quantum communication systems that made their fleets operate as a single, coordinated entity. They had created artificial intelligence systems that could calculate battle strategies in real time. Most importantly, they had developed weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. "You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully," President Vasquez's voice cut through the tension. "Leave human space, return to your council, and inform them that humanity is willing to negotiate as equals, not as subjects." "We do not negotiate with rebellious species," Corvin replied. "All ships prepare for coordinated assault. We will reduce their installations to debris." "I was hoping you'd say that," Admiral Chen said quietly. What happened next would be remembered as the moment the galaxy's balance of power shifted forever. The Council fleet, confident in their numerical superiority, began their attack. Energy beams and missile salvos filled the space around New Geneva Station, but none of them reached their target. Instead, they struck what appeared to be empty space and simply disappeared. The entire station was surrounded by a defensive field that absorbed and redirected energy attacks back at their sources. Council ships found themselves being struck by their own weapons. "What kind of technology is this?" Corvin demanded. "Quantum field manipulation," Admiral Chen explained almost conversationally. "We've learned to bend space itself. Your energy weapons are being redirected through folded space back to their points of origin." The Council fleet tried to adjust their tactics, but humanity's response was overwhelming. Ships that had been hidden throughout the system suddenly appeared, not through the gradual revelation of stealth fields, but through actual translocation. They simply materialized at optimal attack positions around the Council fleet. "All ships." "This is Admiral Chen. Implement Directive 7. Across human space." The true extent of humanity's preparation became clear. The 2,000 ships of the Council fleet suddenly found themselves facing over 5,000 human vessels. But these weren't just more ships. They were ships built with technology that seemed to violate the known laws of physics. Human vessels moved without visible propulsion, accelerating at rates that should have killed their crews. Their weapons fired projectiles that seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Their defensive systems absorbed attacks that should have destroyed them. "This is impossible," Corvin repeated, his massive frame shaking with rage and fear. "No species develops this level of technology in 3 years." "We didn't develop it in 3 years," Admiral Chen replied. "We've been developing it for centuries. We just kept it hidden until we needed it." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than an hour. The Council fleet, despite its size and presumed technological superiority, was disabled, not destroyed, Admiral Chen noted, but disabled. Human forces used non-lethal weapons wherever possible, a restraint that shocked the Galactic observers. "This is war, Marshal Corvin," the defeated commander finally transmitted. "I request terms of surrender." "Terms of surrender?" Admiral Chen sounded genuinely surprised. "Marshal, we're not at war. We're having a disagreement about tribute. Systems, here are humanity's terms. Leave our space, return to your council, and tell them that Earth is interested in joining the galactic community as an equal partner, not a subject species. And if the Council refuses, then the Council will discover that humanity's patience has limits. We've shown restraint today, Marshal. Don't mistake that for weakness." In the aftermath of what historians would later call the Quiet Storm incident, the galaxy struggled to understand what had happened. A species that had been considered primitive and harmless had revealed itself to be one of the most advanced civilizations in known space. But the real shock came in the weeks that followed. Rather than using their demonstrated superiority to conquer territory or demand tribute, humanity did something unprecedented. They offered to share their technology. The Council system is based on the assumption that advanced species must dominate primitive ones. President Vasquez explained in her address to the Galactic community, "Humanity rejects that assumption. We believe that cooperation creates more prosperity than domination." The offer was simple. Any species that abandoned the tribute system and committed to peaceful cooperation would be welcome to trade with humanity for advanced technology. Any species that continued to support the exploitation of weaker civilizations would find themselves isolated from the most advanced technological development in the galaxy. The Council's response was predictable. High Chancellor Velthar declared humanity to be a threat to galactic stability and called for a unified response to contain the human expansion. But the declaration fell on deaf ears. Too many species had been paying tribute to the Council for too long, and the prospect of freedom was too attractive to ignore. Within 6 months, the tribute system that had maintained galactic order for 1,000 years elapsed. Species after species declared independence from Council authority and sought trade agreements with humanity. The galaxy's political structure, built on the exploitation of the weak by the strong, crumbled in the face of an alternative that offered cooperation instead of domination. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching as the latest group of refugee ships from former Council territory docked at the station's ports. These were the representatives of species that had been enslaved by the tribute system, finally free to determine their own destiny. "Any regrets?" General Webb asked, joining her at the viewport, "about revealing our hand so dramatically?" "No. About waiting 3 years to do it. Maybe we needed those 3 years to understand what we were dealing with. If we'd revealed our capabilities immediately, the Council might have united against us before we were ready." Sarah nodded. "And now the galaxy knows that there's an alternative to the old system. Some species will choose cooperation over domination. Others will cling to the old ways. But the choice is theirs to make." As they watched a massive cargo ship from the Thixtra Collective docked at the station, the insectoid species had been among the first to abandon the Council system, and their scientific knowledge was proving invaluable in humanity's ongoing research projects. "The quiet ones," Sarah mused. "That's what they're calling us now, because we prefer diplomacy to warfare, because we were quiet until we had something worth saying." The galaxy had expected humanity to be another primitive species to be dominated and exploited. Instead, they had discovered that sometimes the most dangerous opponents are the ones who let you underestimate them. Humanity hadn't just survived first contact with a hostile galactic civilization. They had transformed that civilization into something better. The quiet ones had spoken, and the galaxy would never be the same.